Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Unknown Mystery Story. Tonight, we're heading to New York City. Not the New York you see in postcards, the glittering lights of Times Square, or the quiet beauty of Central Park. We're going behind the ivy-covered walls of one of the most prestigious and competitive preparatory academies in the country. A place where the children of the 1% are forged into the leaders of tomorrow, where the pressure is immense and the stakes are higher than you can possibly imagine. We're going to talk about Isabella Morales. Izzy, a girl who had it all. Brains, beauty, popularity, and a future so bright it was blinding. Until one cold October morning, when that future was stolen from her and packed away like garbage. This is the story of a student's body found in a cardboard box, and a murderer who wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows, but a figure so familiar, so trusted, that their identity sent a shockwave of horror through the entire school. This is a complex case, with layers of ambition, jealousy, and secrets. So if you're ready to look past the perfect facade and uncover the darkness beneath, stick around. And if you appreciate these deep dives into cases that challenge our perceptions, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and click the bell. You won't want to miss the conclusion to this. Now, let's go to the Upper East Side. Let's walk the halls of Northwood Preparatory Academy, and let's find out what really happened to Izzy Morales. The discovery was made not in the manicured calm of the Upper East Side, but 2 miles and a world away, in an alley slick with last night's rain behind a row of bodegas in East Harlem. It was a sanitation worker named Sal on the Tuesday morning shift who saw it. A large, sturdy cardboard box, the kind used for industrial printers, sealed shut with an excessive amount of packing tape. It was the weight that felt wrong. Too heavy for empty packaging, too light and oddly distributed for discarded electronics. He cut the tape with his utility knife, and the nascent stench of bleach and something vaguely organic confirmed his suspicion that this wasn't right. What he found inside made him stumble back, his half-eaten breakfast burrito hitting the grimy pavement. By the time the news broke, Liam Carter was on the M train, rattling his way from his small apartment in Queens toward the gilded cage of Northwood Preparatory Academy. The alert vibrated in his pocket, a headline from a local news app. Unidentified female teen found dead in East Harlem. He glanced at it, felt a fleeting pang of generic sympathy, and put his phone away. Tragedies were a part of the city's daily rhythm, a constant background hum you learned to tune out. His focus was singular. The final draft of his article on the City Council's controversial rezoning plan, the article he was sure would finally clinch him the position of editor-in-chief of the Northwood Chronicle. His only real competition for the job was Isabella "Izzy" Morales. Izzy was Northwood Prep incarnate. The daughter of a celebrated surgeon and a society hostess, she moved through the school's hallowed halls with an effortless grace that Liam, a scholarship kid who still felt like he had an imposter syndrome alarm surgically implanted in his chest, could only watch with a mixture of awe and resentment. She wasn't just popular. She was a gravitational force. She was the sun, and people were content to be her planets. She was also a brilliant, fiercely ambitious writer, and the only person standing between Liam and the one achievement that he believed could validate his entire existence at Northwood. He walked through the wrought iron gates of the school, a Gothic fortress of learning for the city's elite, and the atmosphere was immediately wrong. The usual morning cacophony of students bragging about weekend trips to the Hamptons, of laughter and frantic last-minute studying was replaced by a tense, whispering hush. Clusters of students were gathered around phones, their faces pale and shocked. He caught the eye of Sarah, a quiet girl from his AP history class. "What's going on?" he asked. Her eyes were wide. "You haven't heard? The girl they found. In the box. The police just identified her." She swallowed hard, her voice dropping to a horrified whisper. It was Izzy. The world tilted on its axis. Liam felt a strange, dizzying wave of vertigo. Izzy, dead. The words didn't compute. They were puzzle pieces from 2 entirely different sets. Izzy belonged in this world of polished wood floors, hushed libraries, and boundless potential. A cardboard box in an alley belonged to the world of abstract tragedy he read about on his phone. He saw them then, across the manicured courtyard. The other planets, now without their sun. Caleb Vanderbilt, Izzy's boyfriend, the school's lacrosse captain and the heir to a real estate empire, stood stiffly, his jaw clenched, surrounded by his jock friends who patted his back with awkward, useless gestures. His grief looked performative, like he was playing the role of the bereaved boyfriend in a school play. Nearby, Chloe Astor, Izzy's best friend and shadow, was weeping hysterically into the shoulder of another girl from their clique. Her sobs were loud, theatrical, drawing the attention of everyone around her. Liam felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He wasn't grieving. How could he? His primary rival, the single biggest obstacle to his ambition, had just been eliminated. The thought was ugly, and he pushed it away, but it left a greasy residue of guilt. He didn't feel sadness. He felt a profound and unsettling silence where the constant, low-grade hum of his competition with Izzy used to be. The school day was a surreal pantomime. Classes were canceled in favor of a hastily assembled school-wide assembly. The headmaster, Dr. Albright, a man who always looked uncomfortable in his own skin, delivered a somber, cliché-ridden speech about a light extinguished too soon. Grief counselors, looking as overwhelmed as the students, set up stations in the library. But underneath the public performance of mourning, the school was electric with speculation. It was probably a drug deal gone bad, a junior whispered behind Liam in the lunch line. I heard she was messing with some sketchy guys from downtown. I bet it was a stalker, another countered. A girl that pretty, you know? Liam found it all disgusting. They were turning her life into a cheap, true crime podcast episode before she was even cold. He escaped the oppressive atmosphere of the cafeteria and headed to the one place that felt like his territory, the newspaper office. The Northwood Chronicle had its own small, cluttered suite of rooms in the basement. It was a world away from the mahogany and marble upstairs. It smelled of old paper, coffee, and ambition. He expected it to be empty, but the door was ajar. Inside, two men in dark suits were speaking with Mr. Alistair Finch, the paper's faculty advisor. Finch was an intense, wiry man in his late 30s with a passion for journalism that bordered on zealotry. He was the one who had nurtured both Liam's and Izzy's talent, pushing them, challenging them, and ultimately pitting them against each other for the top job. The two men were detectives. One of them, a stout, weary-looking man with a crumpled trench coat, introduced himself as Detective Harding. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned Liam, taking in his slightly too worn blazer and his outsider status. You're Liam Carter, Harding said. It wasn't a question. We know you and Miss Morales were the two candidates for editor. It was a friendly rivalry, Liam said, his voice coming out defensive. They always are, Harding replied, a hint of cynicism in his voice. We're just trying to get a timeline. When was the last time you saw her? Friday afternoon, Liam said, the memory clear as day. Right here. We were arguing. Finch shot him a warning look. It was a spirited debate, Detective, he interjected. About editorial direction. He called her a Nepo baby hack who only wrote fluff pieces about charity galas, Liam said flatly, ignoring Finch. She called me a bitter, sanctimonious wannabe who thought writing about zoning laws was the peak of journalistic integrity. Harding's partner, a younger detective, scribbled in a notepad. So, a friendly rivalry, Harding repeated, a ghost of a smile on his lips. Did she seem worried? Scared? Was she working on anything big? Izzy was never scared, Liam said honestly. And she was always working on something big. She called it her masterpiece. The story that was going to change everything. What was it about? She wouldn't tell me, Liam admitted. She was secretive about it. Said she didn't want me stealing her thunder. The detectives questioned Finch for a few more minutes and then left, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Finch sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. He looked genuinely devastated. A masterpiece, Finch murmured, more to himself than to Liam. She was brilliant, you know. Under all that polish, she had the instincts of a true investigative reporter. a killer instinct. He winced at his own choice of words. Whatever she was working on, it must have been dangerous. After Finch left, Liam stayed. He felt drawn to Izzy's desk, a space that had always been off-limits. It was a chaotic mess of style magazines, half-finished lattes, and drafts of articles marked up with her elegant, looping handwriting. Felt profoundly, achingly empty. On her monitor, a screensaver of a sunset over the ocean glowed placidly. Her laptop was password protected. He tried the obvious. Her birthday, her dog's name, Caleb, nothing. On a hunch, he looked at her keyboard. Certain keys I, N, V, C, T, U, were slightly more worn than the others. He thought about their argument. He had called her a hack. She had called him sanctimonious. But what was at the core of their rivalry? What was the ultimate prize? He typed, Invictus, the name of the school's highest academic award, which they had both been vying for since freshman year. The screen unlocked. Her desktop was a dizzying array of folders. Most were labeled clearly, history paper, charity gala pics, college essays. But one was different. It was titled simply with a period, dot. He clicked on it. It was password protected again. He tried Invictus again. Access denied. He thought for a moment, then typed the one thing he knew she privately feared being called, the insult he had hurled at her in anger on Friday. He typed, hack. The folder opened. It wasn't a single story. It was a web of documents, audio files, and encrypted chat logs. It was an investigation that went far beyond student drug use or cheating. This was bigger, much bigger. The main file was a draft of an article, and its title hit Liam like a physical blow. The Price of Admission, How Northwood Prep Sells Its Soul. He started to read. It was a meticulously researched, brilliantly written exposé. Izzy had uncovered a systemic, years-long scheme at Northwood. It wasn't about students cheating. It was about the administration itself. She had found proof financial records, anonymous testimony from a former admissions officer that the school was accepting underqualified, wealthy students in exchange for massive, off-the-books donations from their parents. But it was worse than that. To make room for these wealthy underachievers, the school had been fabricating disciplinary infractions and managing out less connected scholarship students like Liam. His blood ran cold. He remembered a brilliant scholarship kid from the year above who had been expelled for a minor plagiarism charge that always seemed trumped up. Izzy had the documents to prove his expulsion was a sham, timed perfectly to open up a spot for the son of a Russian oligarch. But the final part of the investigation was what made him stop breathing. Izzy had discovered that the architect of the entire scheme, the one who managed the transactions and falsified the records, wasn't the headmaster or some faceless board member. She had audio recordings, clandestine meetings recorded on a hidden microphone. The voice on the recordings, distorted but unmistakable to anyone who had spent hours in his office, was calm, articulate, and utterly damning. It was the voice of Mr. Alastair Finch. Liam felt sick. Finch, the champion of journalistic integrity. Finch, the man who had preached to them about speaking truth to power. Finch, who had looked so genuinely devastated just an hour ago. He was the gatekeeper of the entire corrupt enterprise. He scrolled to the bottom of the document, to Izzy's final notes. The last entry was time-stamped Friday, 9:17 p.m. Met with F. Tonight, in his office. Presented him with the evidence. He didn't deny it. Said I had no idea what I was messing with. That this was bigger than me, bigger than him. He seemed scared, not angry, terrified. He offered me a deal. Said he could guarantee me editor-in-chief a full ride to Columbia, anything I wanted. Just kill the story. I told him the truth wasn't for sale. I think I made a mistake. He locked the door. I have to get this out. The entry ended there. Liam shot up from the chair, his heart hammering against his ribs. He looked around the empty newspaper office. The friendly, cluttered room now felt like a tomb. He wasn't just sitting at a dead girl's desk. He was holding her confession, her motive, and her killer's name. The murderer wasn't a stalker or a drug dealer. The murderer was the one person, besides Liam himself, who had a key to this very room. The murderer was the man who had nurtured her talent and then, when that talent became a threat, extinguished it. The murderer who had shocked the whole school wasn't a student. It was their teacher. He grabbed his bag, his mind racing. He had to go to the police. He had to show Detective Harding. He copied the entire folder onto a flash drive, his fingers trembling. As the progress bar filled, he heard footsteps in the hallway. He quickly ejected the drive, shoved it in his pocket, and locked the computer screen just as the door swung open. Mr. Finch stood in the doorway, a sympathetic, sorrowful smile on his face. "Liam," he said softly, "I'm glad you're still here. In all this tragedy, we still have a paper to run. I've been thinking, with Izzy gone, there's no question now. The editor-in-chief position is yours." Liam stared at him, at the kind, encouraging face of his mentor, the face of a killer. The man's eyes twinkled, but behind them, Liam could now see an abyss, cold and vast and terrifying. He was being offered the very deal Izzy had refused. The walk from the basement newspaper office to the school's main gate felt like traversing a minefield. Every friendly nod from a fellow student, every sympathetic glance from a teacher, felt like a potential threat. Mr. Finch's offer wasn't a prize. It was a leash. He had handed Liam the keys to the kingdom to see if he would lock himself inside, or if he would dare to look for the dungeons below. The flash drive in his pocket felt less like a tool of justice and more like a radioactive isotope, poisoning him from the inside out. He clutched its small, rectangular shape through the fabric of his jeans, a talisman of a truth so heavy it threatened to pull him under. The M-train, usually a comforting cocoon of anonymity, became a theater of paranoia. The screech of the wheels on the track sounded like a scream. The reflection of the man standing behind him in the dark window seemed to linger too long. Was he just another commuter, or was he one of Finch's powerful connections? One of the parents who had bought their child's future and would do anything to protect that investment? The thought was absurd, but in the new world Liam inhabited, absurdity felt like the baseline. His small apartment in Queens, his sanctuary from the polished, suffocating wealth of Northwood, offered no comfort, felt flimsy, vulnerable. He double-checked the flimsy lock on his door, a laughable defense against the kind of power he was now up against. He plugged the flash drive into his aging laptop, his hands trembling slightly, and stared at the folder labeled with a single period. Dot. Inside lay a dead girl's masterpiece and a respected teacher's damnation. His first instinct was to run, to take the drive straight to Detective Harding, dump the contents on his desk, and wash his hands of the whole affair. But a cold, practical fear stopped him. What was his evidence, really? A folder of documents on a dead girl's computer that he had accessed by guessing her password. An audio file of a man's voice. He could imagine Finch's defense attorneys tearing him apart on the stand. "Isn't it true, Mr. Carter, that you were Miss Morales's biggest rival? Isn't it true you stood to gain the most from her death? Isn't it convenient that you, a scholarship student with a known chip on his shoulder, discovered this so-called evidence against a beloved, award-winning teacher? They would shred him." Finch was an institution at Northwood. Liam was a guest who had overstayed his welcome. No, he needed more. He needed something that couldn't be explained away. Something that tied Finch not just to the financial crime, but to the physical act of murder. He needed to find the missing link between the argument in the office and the cardboard box in the alley. To get that, he had to go back into the lion's den. He had to play the part. The next morning, Liam walked into Northwood with a new resolve. He found Mr. Finch in his office before first period, the same office where Izzy had signed her own death warrant. Finch looked up from his desk, his expression a perfect blend of paternal warmth and shared sorrow. "Liam," he said, his voice soft. "Good. I was hoping to see you. We need to plan. The paper must go on. It's what Izzy would have wanted." Liam took a breath, summoning the performance of his life. "I agree, sir. I'd be honored to step up. For Izzy." A look of quiet, profound relief passed over Finch's face. The test was over. The leash was on. "Excellent," he said, clapping Liam on the shoulder. "I knew I could count on you. You have my full support. Anything you need access, it's yours." It was the opening Liam needed. He spent the next 2 days creating his cover. He announced at a staff meeting for the Chronicle that they would be dedicating the next issue entirely to Izzy. It would be a celebration of her life and her work. The idea was met with tearful approval. He assigned reporters to interview her friends, her teachers, her lacrosse coach. He was building a monument to her memory, and in doing so, he was secretly gathering the stones to build her killer's tomb. His new position as editor-in-chief was his all-access pass. Arguing that he needed to compile a complete portfolio of Izzy's work for the Tribute, he requested access to the newspaper's server archives and, crucially, the office's administrative logs. He spent hours scrolling through years of files, the official story of Northwood. But he was looking for the unofficial one. He cross-referenced the dates of the suspicious expulsions from Izzy's files with Finch's financial records, which he accessed through the school's business office by claiming he needed to finalize the newspaper's budget. He found it. Massive donations made to a discretionary fund controlled by Finch, arriving within weeks of each scholarship student being managed out. But it was in an old digital alumni newsletter from 3 years ago that he found the motive. It was a feel-good piece about Northwood faculty's lives outside the classroom. There was a picture of Mr. Finch, smiling broadly, standing beside a pale, thin boy in a wheelchair. The caption read, "Alistair Finch, faculty, with his son, Thomas, at the annual walkathon for chronic granulomatous disease research." Liam's fingers flew across the keyboard. CGD, a rare, life-threatening genetic disorder. The treatments were experimental, ongoing, and astronomically expensive. A teacher's salary, even a generous one from a place like Northwood, wouldn't even begin to cover it. The corruption wasn't about a new car or a summer home in the south of France. It was about keeping his son alive. The revelation didn't excuse Finch's actions, but it cast them in a new, tragically human light. He wasn't a monster born of greed, but one forged in the crucible of desperation. Now he needed to retrace Izzy's last day. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He had to talk to the planets, the ones still orbiting a dead sun. He found Caleb Vanderbilt by the lacrosse field, listlessly firing shots at an empty goal. The usual swagger was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out frustration. "Caleb," Liam said, approaching cautiously. Caleb glared at him. "What do you want, Carter? Come to gloat? You got what you wanted." "No," Liam said, his voice steady. "I came because I think you know she was working on something dangerous, and I think it got her killed." That broke through the jock facade. Caleb stopped, leaning on his lacrosse stick, his shoulders slumping. "We fought," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "That Friday. She was supposed to meet me and my parents for dinner. A big deal. And she canceled. Last minute. Said she had to work on some secret story. I didn't get it. I told her she cared more about this stupid paper than about me." His eyes glistened with regret. "She got angry, said I wouldn't understand. She said she had to meet a confidential source off campus. A real source, not some high school thing. A lie." Liam knew from her notes that her meeting was with Finch in his office. She had lied to her own boyfriend to protect her story. Or to protect him. "Was that the last time you spoke to her?" Liam asked. Caleb nodded. "She stormed off, and I never saw her again." He slammed his stick against the goalpost, the metal clang echoing across the empty field. He was just a kid whose girlfriend was dead, and he was drowning in the guilt of their last words. Next was Chloe Astor. He found her in the library, surrounded by old yearbooks, ostensibly for the Tribute issue, but really just torturing herself with memories. She looked up as he approached, her eyes red and swollen. "Liam," she sniffled. "Did you need something?" "I need the truth, Chloe," he said, sitting opposite her. "I know you two were close, but I also know things weren't always perfect. Izzy was the son, And sometimes it's hard to live in someone's shadow. The words hit their mark. Chloe's carefully constructed mask of the perfect, grieving best friend crumbled. "I loved her," she whispered, tears flowing freely now. "But God, I was so jealous of her. Everything was easy for her. Boys, grades, writing. She had it all, and she didn't even seem to notice." "On Friday night," Liam pressed gently. "Did you see her? After her fight with Caleb?" Chloe hesitated, looking down at her hands. I was leaving the library late. I saw her. She was heading down the hallway, toward the basement stairs. Toward the newspaper office?" She nodded, a fresh wave of guilt washing over her. She looked determined. "I was going to call out to her to see if she was okay. But I didn't. I was still angry about something stupid. So I just watched her go." She finally looked at him, her eyes wide with a terrible realization. She went into Finch's office. He was there. He let her in. I saw him through the window in the door. I didn't think anything of it. He was her mentor. But she never came back out. It was the final piece. The eyewitness. Chloe's testimony placed Izzy in that room with Finch on the night she died. It was time to set the trap. He spent that night crafting his weapon. It wasn't a gun or a knife. It was a paragraph. He used his new editorial privileges to post a short and signed piece on the front page of the Chronicle's website. It went live at 2 a.m. An editor's note on truth. "In the wake of tragedy, we seek comfort in memory. We build monuments of words to those we have lost. But the greatest tribute to a life like Isabella Morales's is not sentiment. It is truth. It is the relentless pursuit of the principles she held dear. A story is never truly over. Evidence can be buried, but it can also be preserved. Sometimes the most important files are not on a laptop, but in the hands of a friend, waiting for the right moment to be opened. A light has been extinguished, but her work shines on. And the truth will always find its way out." Then, with Chloe's help, he started a rumor. He had her confide in the school's biggest gossip that Izzy, paranoid about her laptop being hacked, had given a second flash drive with all her research to a trusted friend for safekeeping. The rumor, planted in fertile ground, spread through the school's social ecosystem like wildfire. The bait worked faster than he could have imagined. By mid-morning, he had an email from Mr. Finch. Subject: urgent tribute issue. "Liam, I have some thoughts on the tribute. Some of Izzy's early, unpublished work I think we should include. Can you meet me in the office tonight? Around 10 p.m.? After the night custodians have gone. We need to talk." The message was clear. We need to talk. Liam's blood ran cold, but a grim resolve settled over him. He typed his reply, then made his second call. "Detective Harding," he said when the weary voice answered. "This is Liam Carter. I know who killed Izzy Morales, and I know how to get his confession. But you need to be there." The newspaper office was silent and dark when Liam arrived at 9:50 p.m. He left the main lights off, using only the glow from a desk lamp, creating an island of light in a sea of shadows. It felt like a stage set for the final act. His heart was a frantic drum against his ribs. He had Harding and 2 uniformed officers waiting in an unmarked car a block away, ready to move in on his sign-all text message that simply said, "Now." At precisely 10 p.m., the door opened, and Mr. Finch stepped inside, closing it softly behind him. He wasn't carrying a briefcase or any files. His hands were empty. He wore the same sorrowful, paternal mask he'd worn all week. "Liam," he began, his voice calm. "Thank you for coming. I saw your editorial. Very moving." "I meant every word," Liam said, his voice steadier than he felt. Finch walked slowly into the room, his eyes scanning the cluttered desks, the stacks of old papers. "A story is never truly over," he quoted, a slight, mirthless smile on his lips. "You've been busy, haven't you, Liam? Talking to Caleb, to Chloe, planting little seeds. Tell me, this second flash drive, does it exist?" Liam's bluff had been called. "What do you think?" he countered, his hand in his pocket, his thumb resting on the screen of his phone. Finch sighed, a long, mournful sound, and the mask finally fell away. The grief, the warmth, the mentorship, it all evaporated, leaving behind something cold, exhausted, and terrifyingly pragmatic. I didn't want this for you, Liam. I gave you the job. I gave you the crown. All you had to do was wear it and stay quiet. Like you asked Izzy to? She was brilliant, Finch said, his voice filled with a strange, genuine admiration. She saw it all, the whole rotten system. I built it, from nothing. I did it to save my son. Do you think I care about these pampered little brats and their trust funds? I was Robin Hood, Liam, taking from the undeserving rich to save a dying boy. And Izzy? What was she? She was a complication, Finch said, his voice flat. She came to me that night. Here, in this room. She laid it all out. But she wasn't gloating. She felt sorry for me. She saw Thomas's picture on my desk. She wanted to write the story in a way that exposed the school but painted me as a victim of circumstance. She wanted to save me. He laughed, a dry, broken sound. That was her mistake. Couldn't be saved. Not without my son's treatment ending. Panicked, I begged her to kill the story. I offered her everything. This job. Columbia. But she had this infuriating integrity. She said the truth wasn't for sale. He took a step closer. I just wanted her to stop, to listen. I grabbed her arm. She tried to pull away. She was stronger than she looked. He gestured toward the corner of the room, where a heavy, antique cast-iron printing press sat as a decoration. She stumbled, backwards. Her head had hit the corner of the press. He closed his eyes, replaying the moment. It was just a crack, not loud, but I knew. I knew instantly. It was an accident. A stupid, panicked accident. His eyes opened, and they were filled with a chilling clarity. But the cover-up, that was a choice. I couldn't let my son die because of a mistake. I put her in the box. I drove her to a place no one would ever look for a girl like her. I erased the camera logs. I did what I had to do. He was standing right in front of Liam now, his face inches away. And now you've done this. You found a loose thread, and you just couldn't stop pulling. This second drive, I need it, Liam. There is no second drive, Liam said, his voice shaking. Finch's eyes widened, then narrowed in fury. He had been tricked. You foolish boy, he hissed. I gave you a kingdom, and you chose to be a martyr instead. He lunged, not like a movie villain, but like a cornered animal, all desperate, frantic energy. Liam stumbled back, his hand fumbling for his phone. He managed to press the side button to wake the screen, his thumb swiping frantically for the message app as Finch grabbed the front of his shirt, slamming him against a filing cabinet. The door to the office burst open. NYPD. Don't move. Harding and the two officers flooded the room, guns drawn. Finch froze, his hands still gripping Liam's shirt. He looked from the police to Liam, his face a mask of utter, absolute defeat. It was over. He released Liam and slowly raised his hands, a broken man weeping silently amidst the relics of the profession he had so thoroughly betrayed. The scandal that erupted was seismic. The arrest of a beloved teacher for the murder of a star student blew the lid off Northwood Preparatory Academy. Finch's confession led to a massive investigation into the school's finances and admissions policies. The headmaster resigned in disgrace. Several wealthy parents were indicted. The school, to save itself, was forced into a period of radical, painful transparency. The final scene took place 6 months later. Liam sat in the editor-in-chief's chair, the office now bathed in the clean light of a spring morning. Framed on the wall was the cover of the tribute issue for Izzy. It was a beautiful photo of her, smiling, vibrant, and alive. But it was the issue next to it that held more meaning. It was the first issue under his official tenure, published 2 weeks after Finch's arrest. The headline, which had been picked up by every major newspaper in the city, was simple and stark: the price of admission. He had published her story, word for word. He used her research, her notes, her impeccable and searing prose. He added a single editor's note at the end. This story was the final work of Isabella Morales. Her pursuit of the truth cost her her life. The least we can do is have the courage to read it. This is her masterpiece. The position he had coveted, the title he had fought Izzy for, now felt different. It wasn't a trophy. It was a responsibility. He looked at the blank document on his screen, ready to start the next story. He wasn't just writing for himself anymore. He was writing for her too. He was using his voice to give power to the truth, the one thing she believed in, the one thing that had cost her everything, and the one thing that, in the end, had set her story free.